Reverend John Ward DiOrio here, pastor of St. Paul's United Church of Christ. We're trying a new video. We realized we haven't done one for a little bit. I'm going to talk about Lent a little. Some of you might be saying, where is Lent? And it starts really late this year. For those less familiar with the whole church calendar sort of thing, Lent doesn't happen on a set day like Christmas does. But and there's a big long explanation which I won't get into today. You can look that up. But Lent moves because Easter moves, and Lent is the 40 days previous to Easter. And the idea of Lent is that we're preparing ourselves for the celebration that is Easter, and also preparing ourselves for Holy Week, which is the week prior to Easter. Often something that, because of everything that happens, particularly because of what happens on Good Friday, Jesus' torture and crucifixion and death, we're not always comfortable talking about that. But without that lead up into Easter, we rob something of the power of the celebration of that day. So Lent is the 40 days leading up to the Easter celebration. And it begins on Ash Wednesday, and this year Ash Wednesday falls on March 6th, and then 40 days from that date it constitutes the season of Lent. It's not just a number that was pulled out of the hat. It is connected to the 40 days that Jesus spent in the wilderness. And that happened right after Jesus was baptized, and after he's baptized, he is led by the Spirit into the wilderness, and he's out there for those 40 days praying, fasting, getting ready for his ministry, because he has not engaged in ministry, at least anything that we know about, prior to his baptism. For us then, for Lent, during our 40 days, we have the opportunity to engage in various spiritual practices that prepare us for our ministry. Within the United Church of Christ, and certainly within St. Paul's, we have people from a lot of different religious backgrounds. We have people that grew up in the Congregational or Reformed or the other parts of the UCC, but we also have people from other Protestant denominations, and we have some people who grew up as Roman Catholic. Each of those faith practices have different traditions that they adhere to during Lent. You may have heard of people giving up things for the period of Lent, and that's a practice that some of our folks do as well. So somebody might give up drinking beer. They might give up chocolate. You've probably heard a couple of those things. The idea of that is that we're fasting from those things so that we draw our attention closer to God. And that's the goal of any spiritual practice, is for us to focus our attention, which is becoming increasingly hard for us to do, focus our attention on what it is that God is speaking to us and how it is that God is asking us to act in the world. And this is not always clear, and this takes some time to figure out, and this takes some preparation to get ourselves even in a space to be able to listen. And the 40 days of Lent present us an opportunity to do that, to practice that, to focus our attention. So while some people give things up for Lent, other people take things on. And it might be that somebody says, over Lent I'm going to volunteer at a particular place. Maybe I'm going to work at a food bank or a food pantry, or maybe I'm going to help some kids after school, or some different things along those lines. The other thing that people will take on is a practice of prayer, or a practice of meditation, or perhaps reading some spiritual books, but adding something which is the same idea, that when we do those things, we are narrowing our focus our attention on God and what it is that God's speaking to us, and how it is that God is asking us to act in the world. So we're doing a few things over the Lent, which is coming up, but it's still off there a little bit. We have an Ash Wednesday service on March 6th. It begins at 7:30. We do have the imposition of ashes. We also celebrate communion on that day. It is a day in which we remember that we are mortal, but we're not going to pound away, pardon me, certainly at the fact that, we are sinful people, because that's something that carries a weight that I'm not sure is very helpful. But rather we recognize our mortality and focus on what it is that we do with the lives that we've been given. Following Ash Wednesday, we have a couple of Lenten reading groups. We have found that if we run a group at 1 o'clock from 1 to 2:30, and also another group at 7:30, which is after our yoga. There's folks that participate in yoga here on Monday nights. That gives the most people the opportunity to participate. This year we are reading Jesus and the Disinherited by Howard Thurman. Recently heard that when the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King was asked if he carried any book with him in addition to the Bible throughout all his life, he said just one, and it was this, Jesus and the Disinherited by Howard Thurman. That seems to be a pretty good recommendation. So we're going to be reading through that. We start on Tuesday, March 11th, and we'll run through the rest of Lent. Not Tuesday, I'm really sorry. It's Monday, March 11th, and so there'll be groups that meet at 1 and groups that meet at 7:30 on all the Mondays in Lent following that. We'll be reading this book and discussing this. This is also, during those groups, we take some time for prayer and meditation. And anyone and everyone is invited to participate, whether you're part of the congregation or not. We also then will have a Maundy-Thursday service, which happens during Holy Week on April 18th. Good Friday service, which happens on April 19th. There's an Easter egg hunt on Saturday the 20th. And then our Easter celebration is on April 21st. We have a sunrise service at 6:30. Our regular services at 8 and 10:30, and we have an Easter breakfast slid in there between the two services. So there's a lot going on, and you're invited to any part of that you would want to be a part of, but you don't have to participate in it all. We really hope that if there's something in the midst of that you feel called to, that you'll come on out, that you'll give it a try. We know for many folks, for example, they've never been to an Ash Wednesday service, or they've never been to a Maundy-Thursday service, and when they go, they find it to be an incredible spiritual experience for them. So we invite you, give it a try. You can come for some of the reading during those groups, or only 1 or 2. I think the important thing is picking up the book and going through it. The discussions help us understand, and we can share with one another, but it's not absolutely essential that you attend every one. And there are some other resources too, and we'll put these up on the website, so you can look through this. If I'm talking too fast with dates and things like that, they're on the website. You can check it out. The other thing is, actually, there's a carbon fast. Massachusetts Conference of the United Church of Christ puts together a carbon fast. They've done this for the last couple of years, so they send out a daily email during Lent with suggestions about how it is that we might live our lives, reducing our carbon footprint, being more environmentally aware. So lots and lots of resources. I would love to share with you any and all of them that we have available. And if you've got questions and you want to talk about what it is that you might in particular do, call, email, and we can sit down and talk. Because this is a time in which we're hoping as many people as want to and as possible will focus their attention on what it is that God's speaking to us and how it is that God is calling us to act in the world. Thanks.